on. I'm a bit nervous about having more seats put out because then that compromises our exit. Oh dear, I can hear myself. You can't hear me? No. All right. But there's a strange sound as though the aliens are about to land. Can you hear that noise? Yes. I think we might just have to live with it. This hasn't happened before, but it's obviously something happening tonight. So, in the interest of starting on time, Ms. Shepherd, maybe we'll start?
I can't.
Keep going. All right. Maybe it'll get better. Maybe we'll get used to it. So, to start the official proceedings of this council meeting, Mount Alexander Shire, 18th February 2020, I would like to acknowledge that we're meeting on Jara country, which the members and elders of the Jara community and their forebears have been custodians for many centuries and have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region. I have 6 councillors present, with apologies from Councillor Gardner. Oh, I beg your pardon, I'm also, the former mayor reminds me, I have to tell people that council meetings are audio and video recorded and are made available to the public via electronic media, including YouTube. You won't be shown. The camera is pointing relentlessly at me and the rest of the council table. However, if you speak, your voice will be recorded. Councillors, do I have any declarations of interest or conflicts of interest for tonight's agenda? No, thank you. Confirmation of minutes, ordinary meeting of council from the 17th of December 2019.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the Mount Alexander Shire Council held on the 17th of December 2019 be confirmed.
Thank you, Councillor Lesser. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Manchin. Any opposition? Declare the matter carried. Now, I have some very pleasant tasks to perform here. We have with us in the audience Ms. Ray Kingsbury, who has received a member of the Order of Australia. She's a local resident. So Council wishes to acknowledge Mount Alexander Shire resident, Ms. Ray Kingsbury AM, who was recently recognised in the 2020 Australia Day Honours List for her service to the community. She was honoured as a member of the Order of Australia for her significant service to the international community of Timor-Leste. Ms. Kingsbury was instrumental in the founding of the Australia-Timor-Leste Friendship Groups. She founded the Australia-Timor-Leste Friendship Network and facilitated the incorporation. Ms. Kingsbury also completed 2 terms as Timor-Leste's honorary consul in Victoria. So, congratulations. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Yes,
Safety will do this.
That's wonderful, yes. And I think you can come up a little bit more. Oh, beautiful. Now the flowers are actually for you.
Thank you.
The flowers.
Thank you.
And maybe your husband. And we'd love it if you could say a few words about your father.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Much appreciated, and also the councillors as well, so thank you. It is indeed an honour, and I'm very pleased to be here. I'm very pleased also as a Friends of Lolotoi, which is a local East Timor group, and they have been working also very hard with the community in Timor-Leste. Working with the international community in Timor-Leste also enabled me to have observer groups, and one of those observers, the first head of that observer mission was my husband, Damien Kingsbury, who's sitting here. And so working with Timor-Leste, working with the international community, and I also got my husband, and now I'm here in Mount Alexander Shire. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and we understand, Ms. Kingsbury, and Mr. Kingsbury, that you now have to leave us to attend another important function. So, please bid you farewell. Thank you for coming. Congratulations. Yes, late. So, in fact, there are the opportunity for two people to sit down. Now we have two spare seats for those who'd like to sit in the front or nearby. Thank you. So now we come to public question time, and I guess I'll start by looking for a motion to suspend standing orders. Thank you. Councillor Neiman, seconded by Councillor Machen. I understand there's a few people who would like to speak to us tonight, and just remind people that it is a time to enable members of the public to ask questions or to address council. We've suspended standing orders, which allows people apart from councillors and council officers to speak. We allow 30 minutes, but if we need to go over that time, councillors can elect to do so. Each speaker has 3 minutes in which to speak, and I'm advised that I must disallow a question if it relates to a matter outside the duties and powers of council, if it's unpleasantly defamatory, indecent, etc., or objectionable in language, is aimed at embarrassing a councillor or member of staff, or relates to personnel matters, industrial, contractual matters, or legal advice. So, leaving those things out, we welcome people to come and speak to us, and of course remember that it is recorded in the minutes of the meeting, so please state your name clearly, and whether you're representing a group or an organisation and the topic on which you wish to speak. Now, I believe there are a few groups here. Maybe I'll ask, first of all, is there anyone who wishes to speak to us about a matter that's on tonight's agenda for the council meeting?
There's a lady up the back.
Okay, would you like to come forward, please? And,
Can you hear me? Yes. My name's Clodagh Norwood. I wrote a letter which I noticed was reported in the Express today as a petition signed by 17 people. It was a joint letter. A petition of 17 signatures is a little meagre.
Yeah, I think we did pick that up when looking through the agenda.
But it was about the fact that in November I found, when I took my grandson to the gardens, there was a swarm of bees off to the side, not on the path. When we were coming back, the flick man was there poisoning them. I thought at first, wonderful, a beekeeper. Anyway, I've suggested that the solution to killing the bees might be to have some notices in the gardens, and I've spoken to Shane Doran, who is apparently on your books as a beekeeper and comes and helps out at times. He's given me a website called swarmpatrol.com, and there's also a man in Castlemaine called Daniel V. Shepherd, who I don't think is here tonight. I tried to contact him, but I'm sure he would endorse this, as would other beekeepers, that you have a small notice in the gardens, at least in springtime, to say that if there's a bee swarm, and that significant people like the people at the staff at the gardens know that they can call a beekeeper rather than call the flick man to poison the bees. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you.
And I've got the numbers here and the names, which I shall pass on to you.
If you could pass them on to Shepherd, I'm sure they will end up in the right hands. I very much appreciate that you're collecting that information. Very positive action. Thank you.
That's Shane Doran, that's the swarmpatrol.com. Maybe
So,
I'll talk to you later because there's
anyone else wish to speak to us about an item on tonight's agenda? No, well, in that case, can we move to other people who would like to speak to us about other things? Who would like to go first? Ms. Fernandez, would you like to go forward?
Joyce Sanders, retailer. Two of the biggest problems for retailers in Castlemaine after actually making a living, of course, concerned the large number of tethered dogs on the footpath and the large number of smokers tethered, no, actually just sitting on the bench seats, which mean that none of the retailers want the seats outside their shops, and they've gradually mostly disappeared. But if I could leave the smokers until another time, I'd like to ask about the dogs tonight. As a shopkeeper that attracts large numbers of tethered dogs crying, barking, fighting outside my shop while their owners have leisurely lunches inside an adjacent cafe, it's a daily issue that I really wish I didn't have to have. So imagine my surprise when I read in today's Midland Express that the new Macedon Shire laws require that dogs must be under effective control at all times and cannot be left unattended. I felt sure that that could not mean what it said, so I typed in the offered website and discovered that the meaning is exactly as it says for effective control. And to quote, "A dog is not under effective control when it is left tied up on its own outside a shop or cafe, even if it's only for a very short period of time." I'm wondering if our council could follow Macedon and consider similar laws. I don't believe it's fair for retailers to try to constantly explain to dog owners that leaving a dog tied up for hours in the sun and the rain, often whining and distressed, is not really the definition of taking a dog out for exercise. So I wanted to ask if anything's coming up for our animal and pet ownership. Yeah.
Well, I do know that we are about to embark on the process of reviewing our local laws. Is that correct, Mr. CEO? And as part of that process, we will be accepting submissions from the public, naturally. So I think we could count or flag your presentation tonight as an early submission, and we'll probably have a more formal submission from you when that process starts and it's advertised. I think it's coming up in the next, I don't know, no, it'll be in the next couple of months, I would think. Yeah, so thank you. Who else would like to speak to us? Yes, please.
Good evening. I'm speaking on behalf of my husband Ramon Pavlin and myself. So we wish to bring to Council's attention that both Ramon...
Could you just give us your name?
Yes, Mary Free.
Thank you. And yes, speaking of you as well. Thank you.
We wish to bring to Council's attention that both Ramon and I are long-term residents and ratepayers of this Shire. Ramon's been a ratepayer for approximately 50 years. And we both made a written submission to Council to speak at the December 9th, 2019 Climate Forum within the time frame required to speak. Ramon and I have been lifelong advocates for the environment, and we've lived by example. Ramon has done seed saving, rehabilitating land. Myself, I practice biodynamic farming, freelance environmental journalism, research, hosting public forums, etc. We were both not given a time to address the Climate Forum. A climate emergency declaration was declared at the December Council meeting on behalf of all residents and ratepayers of this Shire, despite us both being denied an opportunity to address the Climate Forum. We question the legal validity of the Council's climate emergency declaration, given the discriminatory manner in which it was conducted. We wish Council to clarify in writing exactly what legally binding laws, rules and regulations this climate emergency declaration places upon the residents and ratepayers of the Shire, what impact this declaration will have on the way of life of residents in our Shire now and in the next 10 years. Will there be financial and other hardships added to the ever-increasing burden of rates and taxes? Is this declaration affiliated to and or regulated by the United Nations? Does this declaration place our Shire under any rules or regulations imposed by other state or federal government bodies or departments? Our concerns are genuine. This declaration should be much more than a reactionary, emotional decision made in haste. We wonder if our Council has considered the full long-term ramifications this declaration places upon all residents and ratepayers of this Shire, short-term and long-term. It has come to our attention that Local Governments for Sustainability is a department of the United Nations, and that a climate emergency declaration is a commitment to reach zero emissions and begin decarbonisation at emergency speed. In Australia, ICLEA Oceania is undertaking a national consultation on how the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Emergency Framework for local government can accelerate, meet and exceed Australia's Paris Climate Agreement obligations. This framework of national consultation and research is supported with funding from the European Commission. Does this funding place our Shire technically under the control of the European Commission and or the United Nations? And we await your detailed written answers to these most concerning questions. Thank you for giving me time to speak, and I will hand the written copy of this and await your answers in writing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm sure it will be handed to the correct officer to respond. I will only add that the complete resolution of Council on the 17th of... Well, first of all, I should say that the Climate Forum received 90 submissions, I think. Councillors were given copies of each of those. There was time for 40 people to speak over a period of 12 hours, giving us a lunch break and a dinner break in there. So Council did hear directly from 40 people, but another 50 people didn't submit, and councillors were given hard copies of each of those, which I certainly read. Mine with big thick folders still in my office, and I spent some time reading all of those back in December. On the matter of the resolution of Council, we're supposed to declare a climate emergency. Secondly, to approve and implement a roadmap that will lead to zero net emissions for Council operations by 2025, ensuring that all actions are informed by cost-benefit analyses to ensure that Council invests in actions with the best returns while maintaining its services at a sustainable long-term budget. We also resolve to integrate a climate change lens into Council's design and construction of infrastructure, the planning and implementation of Council services, and the development of Council policies and strategies. Identify the best ways to engage with the expertise and enthusiasm of our community, and to work with our communities to help reduce our community's greenhouse gases emissions and increase our ability to adapt to climate change, including the development of Council's next climate change strategy. So the focus is very firmly on what Council can do within its own operations, as well as recognising a very strong push from the community to achieve something in a wider sphere. Thank you, but you will receive a response to all your questions in writing. Thank you, then. Who's next? John, I know you've got your hand, but I think I'll go for these two gentlemen first, there and there, and then we'll go there.
It's pretty competitive, isn't it?
No, it is. Be by ballot next. Sorry, sir, please give us your name and whether you're representing an organisation.
Speaking here, Brian Adams from the beautiful hamlet of Guildford. And thanks for the opportunity to speak to a submission that, a joint submission that we'll be putting in from Guildford seeking some assistance. I'll stick to the 3 minutes. I'll get it down to 2.5, I think. My interest particularly in Guildford, is to do with the John Powell Reserve. And having spent 12 years on the Management Committee, which is a Section 86 committee, we're grateful to Council for the wonderful work that they do on the oval and surrounds it, always keep it in a beautiful condition, and have done for many years. For our part, we look after day-to-day stuff at the reserve. That's minor maintenance issues, water management, big issue, electricity and so on, and running events as well. We've got a thriving cricket club with a turf wicket. A turf wicket, you say, everyone's really proud of a turf wicket out there. There aren't too many of them around. It's lovingly attended and, long may it continue. The club hopes to get a women's team going soon. Bring it on, we say. That'll be very exciting if we can bring that about. We're a self-reliant volunteering lot at Guildford. We make few demands on council, but costs are getting the better of us. I'm getting to the nub of the matter now. We're not going broke yet, but moving that way. This is our Section 86 committee. The opportunities to raise funds from events are a little bit difficult. In 1998, the council contribution was $1,500. In 21 years later, it's what was that? It's $1,700. Now that's not much. That's 13.3% over 21 years. CPI 69% in that time, and water charges have gone up over 200%. So you can see what I'm getting at. Our main cost is water, and this financial year it's going to cost us about $4,000. We have to water the oval, not only for cricket, but for the general amenity of our community, and also we're gazetted as a place of last resort in a bushfire. It'd be great to come to a dust bowl, wouldn't it? There is talk about a water ball. That's a hoary old chestnut. Forget it for the time being. That's long term. Our immediate concern is to get the miserly $1,700 up to $3,500, something respectable. It's time to get this anomaly fixed up, and our friendly partnership with council preserved alive and healthy. Please accept this joint letter. That's a little beauty. It's only 1 page and 2 paragraphs, not War and Peace. Won't take up too much council time to read, but it has a lot of stuff in it. It's a joint letter. We ask the council to accept this letter, read it carefully, and look favourably upon the request therein. And that's it.
Well done. Thank you. Only for
Gussie, I've got to give you, watching what happens, I've got to give you the letter. And the press have got to get a couple. Is that right?
Now, while we're on it, is there anyone else from Guildford wish to come speak to us? Right, but I sense a certain flavour here. Is there anyone from another recreation reserve like to speak to us? I can see a hand in the air. And you, sir, are you also from Guildford, or you no? Oh, Trevor, you're hours away yet. No, we'll hear from the recreation reserve. So yes, sir, please, if you could come up. And John Ellis, I will keep you till later because I know you're not from a recreation reserve.
Hello. I'm from the Canterbury Recreation Reserve, and we have a committee that would like to ask about
Sorry, sir, could you give us your name and name?
Could you?
Thank you.
We of the committee would like to ask for what our overall plan is for the grandstand there. We've been told several times what it is, but there's been nothing finalised. And we're just in a kind of, if we want to do something down the ground, we can't do it. We're always told there's an overall plan, and until that is resolved, we can't do anything at the ground. And as for the water situations, like the gentleman said before, this year it's cost us $3,000 already this year for the water. Last year it was approximately $12,000 for water. And we'd just like to know if there's any way the council or something can come to help out, do whatever. We've just spent over $10,000 on chairs and tables to refurbish the venue, And, you know, there's just too many things that we're being held back on, and would like to, if someone would come and have a talk to us or do something that, to let us know what their intentions are, what we can and can't do.
Thank you. This is Campbell's Creek Recreation.
Campbell's Creek Recreation Resort.
I might ask the CEO if he can respond to that. Pete, please. Thank you. Water being in the mix there.
Yeah, thank you for coming in to talk to council. We'd love to come and have a chat with you. So how about we, I'm sorry I missed your name at the start. Wayne, sorry Wayne. Love to come and sit down and have a chat with you guys about where we think things are at and where you think things are at and where we both want to get to. So let's do that. And we'll just grab your details before you leave if you don't mind, so that we can catch up with you. As for water, this is becoming a common problem. We're hearing this quite a bit from different groups. The council did actually put in the current year budget some money for us to start exploring how do we try and use less water through different technologies, different grasses, all that sort of stuff, as well as how do we shore up more water through bores and other means. That's work in progress, but in the meantime we know that there's an awful lot of groups who are finding it really hard to pay that water bill. So rest assured that is a discussion item that the councillors are having at the moment. We're trying to collect information from as many groups as we can to really understand how broad is this problem and what's the size of it. So thank you.
The council has spent a lot of money resurfacing the ground, irrigating the ground and all this. If you want to keep the standard for the ground up, we've got to get the water up to it. And at the moment our bores run dry, so we're having to use town water. So that's where the cost is.
Yeah, understand the problem, and you're not alone. So we need to try and work out how can we fix that.
All right.
But thank you.
Thank you.
While we're on Campbell's Creek, is there anyone else wishing to speak from Campbell's Creek? Yes, please. And if you could please give us your name at the outset, so we go.
Yep. So we'll be a double-pronged attack. After me, the Treasurer will follow. My name's Scott Jones and I'm the President of the Campbell's Creek Football Netball Club. This time last year there was a lot of talk through the community that the Campbell's Creek Football Netball Club was going to fold, was going to merge with Castlemaine, had no money. All these rumours were wrong, and I wish to clarify our situation with the council tonight. We are a resilient club that has been in existence since 1864. As we prepare for season 2020, we have coaches for all our teams. We have appointed a head trainer and a trainer specifically for the netball players. We have retained the majority of our players from last year and recruited 12 plus new senior players. We're financially in the best situation we've been in for the last 5 years. That's not to say we're flush with funds, but rather that we are managing our finances in a responsible manner to ensure the club's long-term viability. Last year we welcomed more than 50 playing and non-playing new members to the club. We had mums returning to netball after semi-retirement, many bringing their infants and children with them. We have players travelling from Bendigo to play football and netball with the club where they grew up, and of course many local players and members. The Campbell's Creek Football Netball Club wish to acknowledge the work of the Management Committee of the Rec Reserve and the Council for the improvements that have been made to the facility in the past 12 months. New carpets and reverse cycle air conditioners has made the club rooms much more welcoming and comfortable space for members and visitors on game day and during training nights. The Campbell's Creek Football Netball Club is committed to being an inclusive, welcoming sporting club. As President, I've seen firsthand that the important role our club plays in the health and well-being of our players, volunteers and supporters. For many of the Campbell's Creek Football Netball Club, the Campbell's Creek Football Netball Club is their primary source of connection with others. As club president, I want to see results on the scoreboard. That's the goal of our players are striving for. But as an executive, our number one priority is to create and maintain an environment where everyone feels that they belong. This is the most challenging thing for us, to entice and retain new members when infrastructure does not cater to everyone's needs. We fully support the Council's Sport and Recreation Hub vision for the Campbell's Creek Recreation Reserve. Regular investment is needed to keep this vision achievable. The reserve is an ideal venue for off-lead dog park that is part of the 2019-20 annual plan. We request that the Council invest in infrastructure at the Campbell's Creek Recreation Reserve. The immediate priority is the provision of changing facilities for female players. Thank you for your time. I'll just get our treasurer to continue on from that.
I'm sorry, there's a technicality here, thank you for that, but no, do come up, I'm sure it won't be denied, but because it's now after 7 o'clock, I need to ask councillors, and we probably start a bit later, but can I have an extension, say 15 minutes of, to 7:15? Thank you, that's Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Neiman. Yes, so your name please, that would be good.
Good evening, I'm Darren Baker, the Treasurer of the Campbells Creek Football Netball Club. I'm also a member of the Section 86 Management Committee for the Campbells Creek Rec Reserve. And finally, I'm the Senior Netball Coach for Campbells Creek Football Netball Club for 2020. I speak to you tonight in the role of Treasurer, and I thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you. At the end of last year, the club's Stronger Communities grant application was successful. We received $8,000 of federal funding towards the installation of a temporary change room facility for netball to be matched in kind by the club and other sources for a total of $16,000. Please don't confuse this with any of the Bridget McKenzie grant funding. It was later on in the year. In 2020, it will cost the Football Netball Club more than $35,000 in affiliation fees, player registration fees, ground user fees and umpire fees. $35,000 to have our teams take the court or run out onto the ground. As a club, we need to be creative in finding affordable solutions to the challenges we face. Netball is an integral component of our club. Our under-13 team played in the finals last season. We have players of all ages. For a number of the women, it is their main source of social interaction during the week. Many say that for them it is a key part of staying active. In the 2020 season, we will be fielding 4 junior and 3 senior netball teams. We will also have at least 4 girls playing junior football. There are no female change room facilities at the rec reserve. Players either change in the storage shed beside the netball court or in the public toilets in the main building. As a temporary solution to the lack of female change room facilities, we will use the grant money to convert 2 shipping containers into a change room area. We will fit out the interior utilising the expertise of club members and local businesses. The interior will have a public space where the netball can be viewed, sheltered from the weather, and a private space where players can safely change. A third space will be set aside for a shower and toilet with the expectation that further funding can be used to install the necessary amenities. This fits into our budget constraints, demonstrates sustainable practice, and provides the club with a saleable asset. When the council implements its master plan for the rec reserve and a new court and change rooms are built, the club will be able to sell the containers. We have felt encouraged by the informal support received by the council for our initiative. We request that the council formally support the Campbells Creek Football Netball Club by assisting us with the necessary permits and advice to ensure that we meet the project deadline of June 30th, 2020. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, that seems a very reasonable request. Acknowledging that there is a dearth of female change rooms in most rural sites, and we really would like to see that change, but as you know, there's a great expense attached, and it's fantastic to hear that you've got a pragmatic, community-led solution, and as councillors we wish you luck, and we certainly hope that the organisation can get behind you and find a way for that to happen. Great to get your reports. Is that it for Campbell's Creek? Yeah, thank you. I can see Mr Butcher standing at the back. He's been, oh sorry, so you've been waiting to, no, okay. Mr Butcher, would you like to come forward? He's been standing up at the back for a long time, so, and I know he's not Campbell's Creek. There's another club he's associated with.
Yes, I am. You're right.
So we had a meeting last night. I'm Trevor Butcher, the President of the Camp Reserve Committee of Management. My other roles are I'm the Vice President of the CDCA Cricket Association, I'm the Treasurer and the Junior Coordinator. I also sit as a committee member on the Castlemaine Football Netball Club. But I'm here on behalf of all of those, and I've sat on the Camp Reserve Committee of Management for over 10 years now, and I sit there only to improve buildings. So that was my main objective. At the time I had nothing to do with the Castlemaine Football Club. I'd have to say I'm no closer now to where I was 10 or 11 years ago. The buildings at the camp are deteriorating badly. The show office was a temporary building 25 years ago. It sits at the front of the reserve, and it's still a temporary building. The table tennis building was built 80 years ago, and most of the people who goes past the camp know how ordinary looking that place is. Chook sheds out the back were built 50 years ago to second-hand material. The netball rooms were second-hand from the CWA at Victory Park there, and they were a demandable building put there 25 years ago. Timekeeper's box has been an OH&S issue, and so has the cricket roller shed where a volunteer was injured last year. Toilet blocks block up every single time we have an event down there due to the trees. Not that we have a problem with the trees. And the cricket nets have been there for over 30 years. The football rooms were built, the club rooms were built 60 years ago by the Castlemaine Football Club, and obviously aren't in the greatest shape. In 2010, 6 inches of water went through the club rooms, and the change rooms, 1.5 foot went through. Table tennis rooms more than that. I didn't realise until last night that maybe the Red Reserve strategy has been passed. I don't know whether that's true or not, but if that's the case, I think it'd be good for all of us reserves to actually understand what that actually means. I know we've been waiting for it for a long time. I gathered from what how I talked to the consultant at the time that we were the premier venue in Castlemaine, and I don't think that our buildings represent the premier events in Castlemaine. We haven't had any real money spent on us for a lot of years, other than the lights that we fought very, very hard for. I've worked with the prisoners there for the last 4.5 years as a volunteer every second Friday, and that only just keeps up the maintenance. We supply our own paint, we cut all the grass around the outside of the reserve, and we do all the maintenance that needs to be done, and it is a fortnightly job for 6 guys. As a builder, I know full well of what needs to be replaced, and I know how old the buildings are down there and how much of a concern it is. Our biggest problem is, pretty similar to Campbell's Creek, is we really can't do anything at the present time because we don't have a master plan in place. We had a great opportunity to get $500,000 worth of funding last year through the Show Society, and we were fully backed by Lisa Chester, Sarah Henderson and Marie Edwards, but unfortunately couldn't put in for it. It's the same with our timekeeper's box. We can't put in for money for that because we're not quite sure where it's going to go. So what I would say is our committee is getting very frustrated and probably disappointed with what is going on at the present time down at the reserve. We consider that we are a significant precinct in Castlemaine, a heritage precinct at that, and with the large population base that sits off the back of us, being 10 to 12,000 people, we consider that money needs to be spent at the camp, if not now, in the near future. So my questions are when are we going to get the master plan passed, and when are we going to see some real change for our supposed premier recreation area? We do enjoy dogs going around our oval. We'll have them any time, so there's no problems with that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Butcher. Very passionate. These are big questions because, yes, we need to respond, and I hope you're going to stay around to hear our CEO respond. I hope you gave you some response at this stage. If you'd like to come a little bit closer, you might be able to hear what the CEO has to say. Thank you.
I think Trevor knows what I have to say. Thanks, Trevor, for bringing that here as well. We have, as you know, Council had a draft master plan that was widely supported by the Section 86 committee through great work on your side as well as to many of the staff in our rec team. It's been a great collaboration, I think. We put that out to community for wider comment, and that was after about 18 months of work by everybody to get to that point. We put that out to community for public comment mid last year, I think, and we got 89 submissions to that, and we've predominantly the concerns that were raised were related to some to do with tree removal. There's a couple of trees that would be affected by the proposal if it were exactly as drafted. There was concerns about heritage impacts related to how the buildings and the netball courts may affect the way that the landscaping is on the, I don't know which side it is, the southwest side. And there was concerns about noise and visual impacts of the proposed pavilion in the location that was in that draft plan. And there's also some concerns about traffic management in the streets that surround that site. We haven't been able to get to resolve and fully understand and have suggestions for council to consider how each of those impacts might be dealt with, should they need to be dealt with. That's been the delay from us. I apologise for that. It's certainly something that we all want to see progressed as quickly as we can, but we've got some work to do to resolve those matters, and certainly that opportunity to meet with the group and talk through that and get some advice from you about some of those matters about how we might be able to best deal with that is something I'd certainly appreciate and look forward to in a couple of weeks' time. But yeah, we've got a couple of challenges there that we need to be able to address before I can feel comfortable that we can bring back a presentation to councillors for them to have a fully informed proposal in front of them. So it's coming. Councillors are very keen for that to happen, I can assure you. We've just got a bit more work to do. So I can give you a very direct answer, but there is some matters there that we need to resolve, and we will bring it to council as quickly as we can.
Thanks, Darren. Councillor Machen's reminding me we've run out of time again. Councillors, I think we need another 15 minutes, maybe? Thank you. The same two people. Councillor Lehman, seconded by Councillor Patrice Mawano. So, is there anyone else from Camp Reserve wish to come and speak to us? No, I think Trevor said it all. Thank you very much for that. So, a bit painful to hear, but it's great to have it said in front of all councillors again. And as well as Campbell's Creek, it's really good to hear you putting those cases forward and speaking to us the way you have. Thank you. Any other recreation reserve matters? No. I believe there's a certain church people would like to speak about. Oh no, we've got. I can't. Is there somebody else behind? But I can't. Yes. Sir, would you like to come forward? Is it a recreation reserve matter? No, or something else? Doesn't matter. Come forward. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Darryl Nettington. I have stood in front of you about 15 months ago. I represent the Castlemaine Athletic Club. The gift meeting is on. Sorry? No, I need a mic. Okay. I represent. Is it on?
Yes, we can.
I represent the Castlemaine Athletic Club, and I was just making the council aware that on Sunday we have our annual gift meeting. It has moved from very early in January to this point in time, and I won't bore you why that had to happen. We're starting at 10 o'clock in the morning with children's races, and we go through with the professionals starting at 11, and we'll finish at 6 o'clock. It's a wonderful day of athletics and entertainment, and as Bronwyn and Darren will attest, it is a great event and a great spectacle. This year we've got over 300 athletes who have entered, and they'll be in obviously more than one event. Our growth areas in the Victorian Athletic League are in veterans and under 18s, and many of our under 18s will also be in the main gift races. One of my I guess, problems that I have is that other councils in the area, Ballarat, Maryborough, Bendigo, Geelong, Keilor, they're not charged for the ground on the day that they are actually using the gift. Ballarat were on 2 weeks ago this Saturday, and it was a 2-day meeting, and the council put a fair bit of money into the preparation of the ground, the track, and they even have a corporate area that they organise themselves and invite different guests of theirs along for the day. It's a little bit different in this Shire. Last year the cost of my meeting was $500 for the ground and $100 for the club rooms that I organised from the footy and netball club. This year it's $1,200 for the same facility. I put in for an events grant and was told that I needed to also put in the cost of the bins for that. I wasn't successful in getting a grant, and so this year, before anyone puts a foot on the ground, it'll cost over $1,800, probably $2,000 when I realise I've got to pay the electrician to get the day underway. I'm just wondering, going forward, is there anything that the council can do for me other than mowing the grass?
Thank you.
I have to prepare the track, and if anyone's got any time Friday, you can come and join me while I mark the track out, which is also something that other meetings in these places don't have to do themselves.
Thank you for that. I think our CEO is keen to respond. I also am aware we have a Section 86 committee that manage the facility which you use, and they're the ones that set the charges. However, Mr. CEO, if you'd like to say something.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, that's true. It is a decision for the committee to work out what is an appropriate amount to charge for different events. Joel?
Yes, however, can I just respond to that? I didn't bring it up before. It is something that needs to be approved by the Shire. It's just not, all the costs, whatever they are, to anyone who uses it, needs to be ticked off by someone upstairs.
I think the technicalities here might need to be discussed in another forum. This is not a question and answer forum.
Sorry, that was all I needed to say.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. But I think that the path that we've gone down with you, Darryl, I think we've got to keep going down with that event support. We have a lot of people who want to do a lot of brilliant events in the Shire, and we have to have a fair and consistent process for that. So I think it's a matter of continuing to work with us to see how your event can best stack up in that process. That's really the avenue that council has. It's got an allocation of funds towards supporting events like yours, and that's really what we want to be getting things to all go through, so that we are being fair and consistent. So I think keep talking to us about that. Of course, we can talk with the committee about possibilities for how they can help as well. But certainly, I think from council's point of view, it's that events grant process that is the right one for us to be working on along the lines of with you. So let's keep doing that. That is really the process that we want to be getting everybody to go through now. Notwithstanding that in its first year, we saw an opportunity to do something a little bit different with you, which is why we went outside of that process, because we saw there was opportunity there to try something different. But we fundamentally have a single events process that we're trying to support everybody fairly and evenly through. So let's keep doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Leon. Now, we're very busy. Who'd like to speak to us next? Yes, please, at the back.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, councillors. My name is Alison Witten. I'm here on behalf of residents of the Paddock on the new development along Rickleven Street. I'm just here to support the letter that I submitted to you earlier in the week around our interest in enhancing walkability and safe pedestrian access and cyclability into the center of town from where we are. We're concerned about some road safety issues along that stretch, and we recognize that there will be more people moving there, so this will become an issue for more residents. The conditions of the road are not conducive to walking, especially with my son in the pram or on the back of the bike. Visibility for cars coming through, and quite a few cars that travel through at high speed or relatively high speed, considering it's a local road. Also, just give us a bit of concern in terms of our ability to walk into town and to ride in the area. And we're concerned about this because walking and cycling are obviously central to the tenets of the paddock and the sustainability motivations behind the development as a whole. And we think about this in a way that's consistent with the climate emergency declaration that was made, also understanding that there are investment considerations and budgetary considerations around infrastructure investment made in the area. So we were pleased to see that footpaths are planned for Reckleben Street, and also that there's work being undertaken along Ray Street in a similar manner, and just wanted to provide some thoughts on what the footpaths might look like along Reckleben Street. We're keen for there to be a shared path while the investment's being made, so that cycling and walking can be possible and comfortable and safe for residents and visitors. We'd be interested in shading over time. We know that's not an immediate opportunity, but for the way the paths to be designed to accommodate shade trees to grow along that path over time, so that it is comfortable and reflective of changing climate conditions. We're interested in materials to be used that are lower impact in their production and also lower impact on the environment, perhaps more permeable than asphalt tends to be. And we're also interested in the timing of this. I suppose selfishly, we understand the budget for this would be considered next year to then be implemented in a future year. And if there's any possibility to begin even just grading a path along there, even if it's not completely finished, we'd be grateful for that opportunity just to make things a little easier in the meantime. So we're keen to work with council on this, and we suspect there will be other things that we're interested in from a sustainability and resilience standpoint going forward. So we'd like this to be an open conversation and one that can be really collaborative. So just wanted to mention that while I'm here this evening, and look forward to hearing from you in the future about this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I guess I have to say that we'll be putting that into the mix for our budget considerations. So thank you very much for your well thought out letter. I appreciate it. Who's next? John, sorry, Mr. Ellis, would you like to come and talk to me? He's been down there on his knees for the best part of an hour, so.
Is this working? No?
Thanks. My apologies. I'm here tonight just to, and with several other people from the Chewton area, because we're concerned about the process that's reaching a climax, where council has decided to dispose of the old church as part of the Chewton Community Centre complex as we know it. There are several other people I know who are anxious to speak tonight, and we're running out of time, so I'm going to cut this very short. But the 1861 church that's been around for a long time has got links to the gold rush. It's placed in the commercial, what was the commercial hub of the Forest Creek diggings, where all the major buildings were. That's one of the remaining buildings that's left there. We're talking Castlemaine Diggings National Heritage Park, we're talking possible World Heritage, and here we are, we've got a building with this sort of history that the future's uncertain at this stage. Its size and its shape, it's unique to Chewton. The town hall and the Sunday school have got limited space. The town hall figures that you'll see at some stage soon for February indicate the overuse of the hall. The number of people that have been involved in it, the number of groups that have been in there. Chewton is growing, and there's going to be a need for a larger hall very soon. And what's going to happen if this is sold off? A new building developed, $5–10 million. So we've got that sort of set up there. Chewton already has a history of taking over its own resources. You think back to the post office when it was the commissioners put it up for sale, it was handed back to the Chewton community and it's been run by the Chewton community since then. Chewton Town Hall was handed back at the same time. Same thing, just gone through a major renovation, a fantastic facility, but limited to around about 60 people. The Chewton Film Society is running out of space, and that's a new development. So we've got this issue of an old building that is at risk when it's sold off. The Monster meeting site was one where the community recognised the cultural heritage that was behind it. And we took that to the Heritage Council, had it classified, and the rest is basically history. The same track's going to be taken with this building. And I can say tonight that a nomination to Victorian Heritage Register will shortly be going into Heritage Victoria. Nothing much should be done until the cultural heritage significance of this church is determined. Any potential purchaser would have to be notified of this nomination and the consequences if it's to be successful. I hope, seeing the building has been locked up since, 2012 or something, I hope that there's going to be an opportunity before the submissions close on Wednesday, tomorrow week, that the building will be open so people from Chewton can have a look inside and see the state of it and see what is available and what's at risk. I hope that can be organised. I think it's really important because people who have moved into Chewton in the last 10 years basically have never been inside that building, and yet others of us that have been there, some remember it as a church venue, others remember it as an entertainment venue. We've all got memories, but a lot of people haven't even seen inside it. So I'd recommend that that be done, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Now, I'm certainly not going to say that that's going to be run out of time, because I would have to incur the wrath of Chewton, especially since I have to drive through Chewton on the way home. However, I do remind you, wonderful Chewtonites, that we are still in a submission period, and anything that can be presented as a written document tonight will go towards the submissions, because if you remember, Council decided back in 2017 to sell the church, but first of all we had to subdivide. Then, because it took so long to get through that process, it was decided last December that we would take a step back. And even though we had made a 2-year-old decision to sell, we've now gone back to we're thinking of disposing, I shouldn't say so, disposing of the building, but we want to hear from the community. We're hearing tonight, but of course officially it has to be written down. And those written submissions will all go into the mix, and then there will be, after that submission period closes, and that period can be extended, when that finally closes, then there will be a special meeting of Council just to hear from people like John and others who wish to speak directly to Council about their decision to dispose of the building. So I just want to remind you that. And so if we limit ourselves to another, say, 2 or 3 speakers tonight, then you know, everyone here who's concerned about the Chewton Church can put in a written submission if you haven't already done so, and we will hear from you. Yes? But I can see Ms McGecken is definitely going to speak tonight. Who else feels they absolutely must be passionately must be heard tonight? Oh, okay. Oh, 2. All right, 2 of you. So I just know I need to. Yes, please. If you've had enough of this meeting, you can definitely leave. We're not insulted. It's quite normal. Then other people can sit down. So I've got 2 people from Chewton are going to speak, and I need to extend suspension of standing orders for another 10 minutes, and I'll have Councillor mention this time, seconded by Councillor Newman. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms McGecken.
My name's Helen McGecken. I'm the president of the Chewton Domain Society. I'd just like to let Council know that last night the Domain Society had their monthly meeting, and it was passed unanimously at that meeting that we approach Council with our intention to request Council to pass the community centre into our care and into our management.
Thank you.
And also, just as another
That's your submission.
As another by the by, I'm one of the founders and co-runners of the Chewton Folk Festival, which ran in Chewton for 6 years. Next year I intend to run another festival in Chewton. It will be a traditional music festival, and it would be lovely to have the church as part of that as well.
Right. Oh, small and ask that. Thank you. Please, actually, I might ask the CEO to say this just before. We'll hear from this lady, and then I'll just ask you to make that remark.
Thanks, Mayor. Just so, please make sure that everything that you can offer in your submission that explains how that might work, how that arrangement might work, and the benefits to the Chewton community, that'll be really helpful for Council's consideration. Just really encourage you to put everything you can into it. Thank you.
Hello. My name's Hilary Blackshaw, and I'm a Chewton resident. I actually played at one of Helen's Chewton Folk Festivals quite a long time ago in the said church. And I'd just like to, I guess, provide a statement just with a lens of, I guess, more recent Chewton residents. So I'll just read it out. So there's a tiled brick building in our little town. It's been referred to as the former Wesleyan Church. In years gone by, and there have been many, there's been music performed there, people have met there, community events held there, and countless conversations have been there. I'm wondering, and I'm inviting everyone here tonight to join me, what if this church, the grounds, surrounding buildings were procured by the people of Chewton? What if this red brick church in fact became our thriving community centre again? A centre which inspires joy, creativity, positivity and resilience. A centre which provides a beautiful venue and supports a myriad of artistry, performances and events, including local music and arts, and also welcomes visiting musicians and artists. What if this centre welcomed everyone with a thriving community garden, which we presently don't have? Supported locals wrapping around the bones of this dear old building? What if, to support a positive and resilient future, we had food swaps, local produce mini markets, repair cafes, community meetings, social events, celebrations and festivals held there? What if the local primary school, which is currently at capacity, could use this as a large performing space, which they currently don't have? What if everyone in Chewton, and I mean everyone regardless of age, felt welcome to walk there, park their bike there, pick a herb, plant a seedling, drop off a book to the community street library, have a chat, join a class? Now these what ifs might seem very idealistic, and they probably are, but they're just my what ifs. But I firmly believe that as a community, the people of Chewton have the right to imagine their own what ifs if there is a chance for us to create a positive, resilient future for our growing community. Most importantly, we could take these what ifs and transition them to why nots, and then we could make it happen. Thank you for allowing me to talk.
Yes, I think you're the last speaker. I think Councillor's awake. Yes, I do very well. Yes, please, your name.
Hi, my name's Wendy Hopkins, and I'm a fairly recent resident of Chewton. However, I've jumped right in, and I'm on the Chewton Pool Committee and the POHAG Committee and the like, because I really believe in the community spirit of Chewton, and that's what draws a lot of people to Chewton. I also just want to put a plug in for the heritage value of the church. My great-great-great-grandfather, John Evatt Sr., came out in 1852, and he was he put up his own money to establish that church and fundraised for it, and he was a preacher there. And so I have a family heritage part of me that calls out and cries out to save the the building. And his son, John Ebbett Jr., was a mayor of Tooting and on the council, and he was the manager of the Garfield gold mine as well. So I have a lot of, and I think a lot of the Ebbets and the Dockings as well were part of the Wesleyan Methodist Church. So yeah, please can we keep it? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as a bit of trivia, anyone wishing to attend the Taradale Historical Society in a couple of weeks' time can hear a speech, a talk given by Mr. Steve Abbott about the history of the Garfield Wheel. One of his ancestors, John Abbott Jr. There you are. Sorry, now I think, Ms. Appleton, you are the very last, absolutely the last. Yes, you are the documenter of Tooting. We have to allow you. And then we're going into...
Hello. Oh, hello. I'm Elaine Appleton. I'm a lifelong resident of Tooting, and it will break my heart to see that building sold. Yes, there has been many events in that building, and yes, all I want to say is please do not sell it. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for that, and I have to let you know that if you want to get up and leave, we're not insulted. We're now going to go back into standing orders, and Councillor Nation is moving that motion, seconded by Councillor Lehman. Thank you all. I'll give you a couple of minutes to leave while Thank you. While people are going out, councillors, I think we better move on. We have the record of assemblies of councillors, and I've got a recommendation that council notes records. So I have a motion. Councillors?
That's me. I'll recommend.
Thank you, Councillor.
I'll recommend that the council notes.
You need to be closer to
Again, this problem. There's no one here. I recommend that council notes the records of the assemblies of councils as required under the Local Government Act 1989.
Thank you. Do I have a second for that? Thank you, Councillor Patricia. Any opposition? Not? No, thank you very much. Let's do the business out of the right. Hello, gentlemen. Nice to see you. Have a seat. And thank you, sir. Thank you. Nice to see you, gentlemen. Okay, so officer reports, appointments to special committees of council, Buffalo Hall, Barringham, Campbell's Creek Community Centre, Newstead Community Centre, and Leslie Hill. Councillors have a long recommendation. Do I have a motion? Councillor? Finding our place, wrong place.
Yes, I'll move if you, I recommend that we appoint the following members to the committees and revoke memberships of the retiring members as follows.
As printed. I see. We're not going to bring out every name. Thank you, Councillor Russell moves that, and seconded by Councillor Cordy. Thank you. Any opposition to that? No? Would you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Russell? Councillor Cordy?
No, thanks.
No, thank you. Acknowledging the good work. All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll move on to our request for Mount Alexander Shire to declare a climate emergency. Do I have someone to move a motion and tell me what it's about? Thank you, Councillor Major. Are you moving the motion?
I'm moving the motion as written with 2 additions. Yeah.
So you might need to read it all out.
So, that council acknowledges the request from the Mount Alexander Climate Emergency Team to declare a climate emergency. 2, writes to the Mount Alexander Climate Emergency Team to advise that under Local Government Act 1989 and Council's Local Law Number 1 Meeting Procedures 2018, the document presented cannot be deemed a petition. B, thank them for their significant effort, and it is a significant effort, to collect and compile the names of 2,390 people who supported the initiatives to ask Council to declare a climate emergency. C, confirm that at its ordinary meeting on 17 December 2019, Council declared a climate emergency. 3, this is the new bit there. In the next review of Local Law 1, clarify whether or how internet-based petitions can be accepted. And 4, publicise clearly on our webpage how petitions can be constructed to be accepted by Council.
Thank you. Councillor Nation, do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillors? Oh, thank you, Councillor Neiman. Is there any opposition? I think the rest of you are busy writing it out. No? Councillor Nation, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Thank you very much, Mayor. The community did a great job, and we can't accept it because it doesn't meet our local laws. However, we've already acted on it because we recognise just how big an effort and how strong a request from our community this was, and for other reasons. They actually, when I was speaking with the organisers, said that they went looking on our website to try and find what they had to do and couldn't find it because you need to know, Mayor, that it's in the arcane law, Local Law Number 1 that describes it, and not many people know that for some strange reason. So it should be really easy to find on our website, and it isn't at the moment. Our local law really doesn't come up to date with modern technology, so that's a chance to review it. Now, I know with the new Local Government Act we're going to have to do a whole lot of reviewing of a whole lot of things very, very quickly, and that will be happening, we anticipate, in the next month maybe, but who knows what the State Parliament's timetable is on that. So there will be a chance, there will be a requirement that we review our Local Law 1, and this will be a time to have a look at that to see whether it's possible to maintain a strong petition that can also be partly done by internet, social media or whatever. I don't know whether it can, I just think we need to look at what some of the best practices are. So that's why I've added to it, and I'd like to congratulate the Mount Alexander Climate Emergency Team on all the work they did to get this.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Councillor Neiman, you wish to speak?
Just briefly, we do everything else in our lives these days electronically. I don't see why this should be a standout.
Thank you. Any other councillor wish to speak? Yes, Councillor Cordy.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd just like to note that I went through the document from one end to the other, and I found it very interesting reading the names that signed in support of the climate emergency. I saw neighbours, friends, former school teachers and the like in there, and I just think it just does demonstrate a broad support in the community for the declaration, and I did notice that my wife had signed the document, so it must be a very sound document. So that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
I hope you weren't breaching privacy laws then, Councillor Cordy. Thank you. Any other councillor wish to speak? No? While there be no opposition, I declare the matter carried, and I certainly think that would be an improvement to our local laws if we can bring it up to the 21st century standard. Thank you. The next matter is the Castlemaine Botanic, it's not the Castlemaine Botanic Gardens funding opportunity. It's a response to a joint letter, not a petition, but a joint letter of control of bees at Botanic Gardens. So Council brings a recommendation here. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that as per the recommendation, just with the exception of advisors for lead signatory rather than petitioner, in view of the fact it's actually a joint letter, not a petition.
Thank you. Councillor Patrice, may I have a seconder? Councillor Corley, thank you. Is there any opposition? Would you like to speak to the matter? No? Councillor Corley?
I'd just like to note, I understand people concerned about bees and the hazards of bee stings, but I think we all acknowledge the importance of bees in terms of pollination, and I was sitting in my own garden today watching the bees, and they were buzzing around, and I didn't bother them and they didn't bother me, so it was a pretty satisfactory outcome. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corley. I do believe that a swarm of bees is... Oh, sorry, there being no opposition, I take it, councillors. I declare the matter carried. So I just wanted to say that having encountered a swarm of bees a few times in my life, and they're pretty scary things because they literally operate the mind of their own, a singular mind, and it's not very nice. The ones I encountered were African bees, which are known to kill people on a regular basis. So even our rather kind-natured local bees have to be forced to reckon with. But I do thank the lady in question who wrote the letter for taking such a positive step. It's coming to us with assistance and the names of beekeepers who would be available to come and capture the swarm, and I believe that's been handed on to our officers. And of course, it's done part of the recommendation to Council that's been adopted as a motion, is that we seek the services of local beekeepers to capture and relocate future bee swarms. So, and I think little notices somewhere around the gardens might alert people to that in the spring, a bit like we have things alerting people to snake on the path too. So anyway, thank you. All right, next matter, councillors, is the staying in the Castlemaine Botanic Gardens is the funding opportunity. So recommendation, yeah, Councillor Machin.
As printed, Mayor.
A motion to.
I'm happy to second, sorry.
Thank you. Would you like to speak to the matter, please? Oh, beg your pardon. Is there any opposition to this? I'm terribly sorry. It's getting a bit late. Is there anyone objecting to the fact that we're going to approve the allocation of $33,525,000 from the Open Space Reserve as our contribution to the Victorian State Government's Growing Victoria's Botanic Gardens Round 1 2019 grant programme to develop a climate change analysis, etc. for our botanic gardens? Is there any objection to that? No? Thank you. Please speak to the motion.
I think this is a very good use of our funds, Mayor, to ensure that we are clear about how to keep the botanic gardens shady, welcoming, beautiful for the next 100 years and more. Thank you.
Yes, that's
really briefly. The other parts, you mentioned the climate change aspect, but the important parts of the aspect to me are also the collections policy as to what trees and species are there, a succession plan, tree succession plan. We all know trees have a certain life and do at some stage need to be replaced, and council would never be able to afford to do all this work on their own without outside funding. And the interpretation plan for the gardens, and this is being funded externally by the government with a 2-to-1 ratio. So we're putting in a 1/3 of around about $100,000, which is a very small amount for this amount of work, and I think we need to make sure that our botanic gardens are the absolute best that they can be and stay that way.
Thank you very much, Councillor. It's good. So we'll move on to, well, I declare the matter carried. Oh dear, no, actually, I asked there was no opposition. I'm snoozing on the job. I beg your pardon, there being no opposition, I declare the matter carried. Now I will move on to the next matter, which is the awarding of contract M1454 2019 Brooms Road Bridge replacement. and we have a recommendation that we award a contract to be civil engineering. Do I have a motion, councillors?
I'll move the motion as per the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Drusilla, and seconded by Councillor Machin. Is there any opposition? Councillor Patrusima, would you like to speak to your motion?
Just really briefly, most Castlemaine residents, and even probably those that don't live here and travel to the Baco a bit, are pretty aware of the Brooms Road Bridge. Single lane bridge, carries a lot of traffic, and it's in very poor condition. And this is to will enable the bridge to become a 2-lane concrete bridge and improve the safety and drivability. So I recommend it to my fellow councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Patrusima. Councillor Machin?
Thank you, Councillor Drusilla. You've said it. I just wish to add that it's one of my nightmares that there's a fire there. Residents are trying to get out while the fire trucks are trying to get in. So to have a 2-lane is very, very important for our safety as well. Thank you.
Any other councillor wish to speak? No. There being no opposition, I declare the matter carried. Thank you. And now we move to the adoption of election period policy.
Just before we do that, I just have a technical question. I noticed that I'll wait until this was finished, that we have the Director of Infrastructure and Development, and the name on the top of the list is somebody that is not with us anymore. So does that need to be sorted out? On all those pages, I just waited till the end.
Well, maybe we can tidy that up in the minutes.
I just thought I'd bring that to
we do obviously prepare these reports well in advance, Mayor, so up until Friday, Phil Yusupovich was our Director of Infrastructure and it was presented to you by him. He just doesn't happen to be here anymore.
So, another councillor has stolen him and he has a much shorter drive to work. Alright, okay, so thank you for picking that up. It was written by him. Adoption of election period policy, which was written by our CEO, who is here, so it's good news, and responsible officer, Ms. Shepherd, who is over there. And we have recommendation that we adopt the election period policy February 2020.
Yes, and
I
will move that Council adopts the election period policy dated here February 2020.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Machin. Councillor Cordy's obviously done his quota for the most, so sorry. Is there any opposition? There better not be, or we'd be in trouble with the state government. No, all good. All right, Councillor Lesser, would you like to speak to your motion?
I would do, just briefly. When I first read that, I was in fear and trepidation, but I need to remind councillors, as a whole, there's 2 sections to this, and that the context in everything that as a councillor we do, as it's listed here on page 35, is about public consultation, scheduling events, council decision making, provision of information to candidates. So there's a lot of things in here that council needs to do, but there's also a section for councillors personally, and that was the piece that frightened me a bit. And I urge my fellow councillors to really read through that. And if you've got any questions, you go across to our governance officer and she will be able to help you out. Because I certainly had a whole lot of questions and I'm grateful for governance support. So this is a really important document because you don't want to fall foul of it. And I certainly am a bit sort of concerned, that's personally, but I'll get there. And I urge everybody else to really look at this because we don't want to have any mistakes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nessa. Councillor Machin, you speaking? No? Any other councillor? Well, there being no opposition, I declare the matter carried. Thank you. Which just brings us to the end of officer reports. Now I have delegate reports. Our CEO has been busy. Myself, not so much. The CEO suggests that I ask any other councillor if they might have a delegate's report. How many conferences they might have attended recently? Councillor Machin.
Thank you, Mayor. I was a delegate for Council at the weekend Climate Emergency Summit, which was very well attended by public, and there was also a council section on Saturday. That came up with a suggestion that a climate emergency network be established, and there's a working party to have a look and to set that up. I don't know how long that will take, and there'll certainly be a lot of consultation with all of council. So that was all of council, so from every state and territory except Tasmania, they couldn't quite get over the water. So that will be an interesting process to see how we learn from each other to do the best actions that we can. The meeting itself came out with a declaration which was basically aimed at federal government, signed by people whose names we might know, such as John Hewson, Tim Costello, Karen Phelps, Carmel Lawrence, and a few other people who've been involved in this politics and looking after us for some time. So I'm just don't know whether anyone will take any notice of that, but it was an interesting event. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Motion. And now I might turn to the CEO and ask him if he wishes to talk about the highlights of his busy time in the last 2 months.
Thanks, Mayor, and yes, it does go back to just before Christmas, so it's a shorter list for both of us than usual, I think, but we were on holidays a little bit in there too, so forgive that, please. Happy as always to take questions on any of the matters. The one I was going to pick out today was a meeting that myself and David Leatham, while he was filling in for Lisa Knight, the Director of Corporate and Community Services, a meeting that we had with Inspector Donna Mitchell and Senior Sergeant Pete Carey from the local group, was related to community safety, and it followed on the back of a meeting that Director Knight and I had some time ago with Pete Carey about the possibility for having a community safety committee, which we thought was a terrific idea. Lots of places do it. We went out to the community, and the amount of interest in that was zero, which was not really a surprise, I think, in a lot of ways, Lisa, because this community feels very safe. And by most measures, Dave might correct me, but by most measures, this community is very safe. So the amount of the perception of the need for a community safety committee really wasn't there when we went out and asked for interest. This meeting was to say, right, given that, what do we do? The police are really eager to get more involved and more led by what the community is looking for. Like you always talk to us about community-led responses and solutions, and they've got an initiative in this region that they call the Web of Safety that they're trying to get to happen. And there's many elements to that, but at the nub of it is, what are the things that this community makes it feel safe in the first place? If that is the perception, what are the things that we need to make sure that we keep so that people do go on feeling safe in the community? And what else is there? So there's, in the coming month or two, there will be an invitation to the community to get involved in the discussion about what is it that makes you feel so safe in this community. How do we make sure that that doesn't go? And what else is there? What are the other opportunities we can build on this generally safe feeling in our community? So it was a really interesting meeting, Mayor, and I'll certainly report back to you when we hear more about when and where they want to do that community forum, because there will be a community forum, and we'll be tapping lots of people on the shoulder to get involved in that, as well as giving a general invitation to people out in the community. Other than that, happy to take questions, Mayor. We'll pass to you.
Thanks, Dan. I'm interested in your meeting itself regarding pre-staffing arrangements.
Sure. That was a meeting that was initiated by Delph because of, this is all in the lead up to our contractor Veolia indicating that they would temporarily not be able to recycle recyclables. So it was a meeting to try and work through that to an extent, and also to talk about what's the future and who needs to do what to make the difference, which was a really interesting discussion, I have to say. the different perspectives about what the future is and who needs to do something to get that future. There were some surprises in that for me there, that I won't share publicly. But some very interesting perceptions about who's got to do something to make a difference. I think we all agree. Yeah, very much so. Castlemaine saying everybody pointing at everybody else. A fair bit of that. Good news though is that as of the 17th, our recycling, we believe, is now being recycled again. So thanks for sticking with this community while we have to deal with that short-term problem. There's bigger problems still out there, and we at local, state and federal level and community level have to keep working on that because there's lots to do. But we are back to normal at least now.
Thank you. Any other questions from the councillors? No? Thank you. Well, we have no notices of motion, no urgent special business, no confidential items, so I will declare the meeting closed at 2 minutes past 8. Thank you, councillor.